All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty wild. We're going to look at a century-old engine, one with no blades, and see how it might just unlock the secrets to a form of power talked about in ancient scriptures. Yeah, you heard that right. A stack of spinning metal discs could be the physical proof of a kind of authority that's all about influence, not brute force.
Okay, so let's start with this fascinating puzzle, the Tesla turbine. I mean, when you think of an engine, what comes to mind? Right? It's usually something violent. You've got blades chopping through water, pistons slamming down. It's all about force. But this thing, it's totally different. It generates power with zero blades, zero impact, zero collision. So the big question is, how on earth does it work? Well, instead of using blades to smack around air or steam, this machine has a stack of perfectly smooth discs. And the magic is in how it gets its power. It all comes down to the natural tendency of a fluid, like air or water, to kind of cling to a surface and drag it along. Think of it like a gentle pull, not a hard push. It's all about adhesion. So this idea of power through adhesion is where things get really interesting. See, this isn't just some clever engineering trick. According to the source material we're digging into, this is a fundamental way of operating in the universe, a concept it calls Rūḥ-mode. And right here is where a simple piece of machinery starts pointing to something much, much bigger. Okay, so this is the absolute core of it all, Rūḥ-mode operation. The source material calls this invisible force, this stickiness, the S field. You can almost think of it as a field of influence. It's a way to transfer energy without violence, without brute force. Instead, you're just harnessing the natural properties of the fluid. You're working with the flow, not against it. And this really just lays it all out, clear as day. The difference is night and day. On one side, you've got your conventional turbine, all about impact, collision, what the source calls a B-force eruption, pure chaos, really. But on the other side, you have the Tesla turbine. It's all about boundary adhesion, smooth, layered, laminar flow. It's pure S-field contact. One is about conflict. The other is all about coherence and harmony. Now hang on, because this is where the theory takes a huge leap. This mechanical principle, this gentle way of working, the source says it's not just for engines. It's actually a physical model, an archetype, for a totally different kind of power, a kind of authority that echoes the story of a famous ancient king. Yep, we're talking about Prophet Solomon and his legendary command of the wind, as mentioned in the Quran. But here's the twist. The idea isn't that he was, zapping storms with lightning bolts. It's much more subtle. As the source says, his real power wasn't over the storm itself, it was over the S layer before the threshold. That's where the total authority lies. So what does that even mean, authority before the threshold? It means his power was over that invisible interface, those gentle currents of air, what this framework calls the S layer. Imagine running an entire kingdom just by understanding and guiding pressure gradients and atmospheric patterns. It's a laminar command, a smooth, layered influence. It's the exact opposite of forceful, stormy domination. And this is where the analogy just clicks perfectly into place. The turbine's smooth discs are just like Solomon's judgment. There's no violent interception. It's all about a gradual, layer-by-layer transfer of momentum. The wind doesn't hit the discs. It glides along them, it sticks to them, it spirals inward. Both systems are designed to get useful work out of flow, not out of conflict. It's all about alignment, not aggression. Okay, so we've got a machine that mirrors a style of leadership. Cool. But the framework we're looking at goes way, way deeper. It actually maps all of these ideas onto a universal blueprint, something it calls the DCU, or the dual caustic universe. And this is where the nuts and bolts mechanics get explicitly tied to the metaphysical. So inside this DCU system, there are two key operators we need to know. First, there's Raḥīm. This is the flow itself, the smooth, viscous movement of the fluid. You can think of it as the expansive, life-giving force. Then you have Razim. That's the boundary, the geometry, the thing that contains and gives shape to the flow. It's the riverbank that guides the river. And when those two forces, Raḥīm, the flow, and Razim, the boundary, are in perfect balance, the system reaches a state of perfection the source calls Raḥmān, represented by the number 1. And get this, a Tesla turbine spinning in its sweet spot is Raḥmān equals 1 in mechanical form. The flow is held in perfect check by the boundary of the discs. There's no chaos, no wasted energy, just pure, clean interface motion. But what happens when that perfect balance breaks? What if the fluid starts to overwhelm the disks, or the geometry is just wrong? Well, that's when the framework says the Shayṭān condition appears. Turbulence erupts, the whole system loses its coherence. And just like that, chaos bursts into the ordered system.
And we can see a perfect example of this in the physics of a storm, which the Quran actually describes. Think about it. The very same wind, the S-carrier, can drive a cloud to produce gentle, life-giving rain. That's a Raḥīm release. But if that same wind pushes past a certain threshold, it can stack that cloud up and create a violent, destructive hailstorm. The wind itself carries no destruction. The chaos only happens when a boundary is crossed, when a threshold is breached.
And check this out. This is where the model gets super, super specific. It literally maps every single part of the turbine onto these cosmic concepts. The stack of smooth disks, that's the buffer, or the B field. The steam or air flowing through, that's the S field itself, the sound caustic. Even the nozzle that injects the fluid and the tiny gap between the disks, they all have a specific mapping and function in this DC's structure. It's a complete one-to-one correspondence.
And it doesn't stop there. The turbine's actual physical design is said to embody what the source calls a 2-3-7 cycle, which it sees as a fundamental pattern in the universe. You've got the dual inlet and outlet for balanced flow, that's the 2, the 3 stages of the boundary layer development, that's your 3, and guess what? The optimal design for torque often uses stacks of 7 disks. The pattern is literally built into the machine.
Okay, but what about its real-world performance? In practice, the Tesla turbine is about 30–40% efficient. Now you might think, that's not great. But the source material argues this isn't a limitation. It's actually the optimal rate for S-field work extraction. And what's absolutely wild is that this number, around 30%, pops up everywhere. In the efficiency of photosynthesis, in the ejection fraction of the human heart, it's like a natural constant for this kind of balanced, coherent work. So, after all of that, from a bladeless engine to cosmic operators and Solomon's kingdom, what's the big takeaway here? What does it all boil down to? It's simple, really. The interface is everything. The source boils this whole thing down to a powerful analogy from fluid mechanics. A smooth boundary layer, what it calls the righteous sun, allows energy to flow efficiently. It inherits the earth, so to speak. But a rough surface, which it calls arrogant, just creates friction, drag, and destructive turbulence. It invites the logic of the flood. So the final lesson is this: maximum power comes from minimum impedance. If you want true efficiency, whether you're building an engine or running a country, you need a buffer, an interface that is smooth, patient, and layered. It can't be bladed and violent. You have to work with the flow, not fight against it. And that brings us to the ultimate conclusion from the source material, a statement that just hangs in the air. Whoever controls the interface controls every outcome downstream. It's not about commanding the storm, it's about mastering the tiny, invisible boundary where everything begins. And that's the question I want to leave you with. In our own world, in our own lives, where else do we see this principle at play? Where does mastering a subtle, invisible interface completely trump the use of brute force? It's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.